another G. Hey, G. To be mindful, are we guiding our attention back to an anchor such as the breath or to our own awareness inside? When I bring myself back to the awareness of the self, my mind will wander again. Yes, it will. It's just a matter of practice. However, when I bring myself back to the breath, sometimes I can get caught up in the trying. I guess I don't know which practice is best. Inside, when I'm bringing myself back to the awareness, my mind can wander again. Right? So if you're bringing your attention back now, and that's just the practice. Remember, we're not trying to control the breath. We're not trying to control the mind, right? We're simply trying to gain control, you could say, over our attention, which has been habitually wandering around, right? Because what I'm really wanting to do is to experience myself and everything as it actually is, okay? Which means no story, no overhead, no anticipation of what might be in the future, no including a desire for awakening, no defining of this moment in the path, but the actual experience of existence, pure, empty. Myself, just as I am, that sense of beingness, just as I am. So, let's see, or to our own awareness inside. When I bring my attention back to the awareness of the self, my mind will wander again. Yes, it will. This will take some practice, because for the mind, when your just attention is purely on yourself. Now, remember, attention can only go so far. Attention will notice that in the most subtle way that there's a sense of being. But even the sense of being is appearing to attention, and attention is reporting to something that attention cannot see. Because even attention is something that something else is aware of. And so that too becomes a phenomena that we're witnessing. And so you can see at this point, the mind wants something to have. The attention wants something to put its attention on, but in this internal looking, there's a point at which the attention cannot go any further. And so now there's just the sense of being, which is the last thing the attention can be aware of. And now even attention itself becomes the object of perception in the field of view of the ultimate perceiver. And even attention then disappears into this pure loving awareness. Now, because there's nothing there to see, attention is going to want to look around. The mind is going to grab you. You just keep bringing it back. That's all you can do. And you may be there for a half a second, and then it's off again. It's go, okay, that's fine. You just keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. No judgment, no criticism, just keep coming back. Because even the judgment, see, you're not getting the hang of this, is just another thought to distract you, to make a commentary, to create a narrative, another view, to create another a world. When I bring myself, sometimes I get caught in the trying. Well, no, it's okay. You are trying. So, until this becomes second nature, everything becomes an effort, right? It took an effort to learn how to ride a bike or play a musical instrument, learn how to talk. I mean, it took effort to get the spoon in your mouth when you're a little kid, right? I see my granddaughter. So, yeah, of course, there's the sense of trying, right? And that's okay. So, all right, I am trying because I'm not used to doing this. I've been habitually doing something else. And in this place, I mean, this dovetails with self-inquiry, because now, okay, who's aware of the trying? There's a sense of trying there. And of course, this is all about creating the environment where our attention isn't going all over the place. The point of it isn't strictly to control the attention, but to have the kind of one-pointed focus on that which is most important. And that which is most important is to know, in the deepest sense, who I am. So when Buddha sat down under the tree, he said, I'm not getting up until I have the answer to suffering. He had already trained for lifetimes of this. This is the most important thing. It is so important, it overrides all other motivations, which is why I could say nothing else matters. Even eating or anything, none of it matters. Only this. With that kind of strength, because he'd already practiced over and over again. He said he had been a bodhisattva serving Buddhas, 500 lifetimes serving Buddhas, right? Which is a word, a period of time he always used when you want to say a lot, right? So he'd been practicing for lifetimes, right? Which isn't to say that the awakening itself is the falling away even of all the lifetimes, right? But don't glom on to that. Instead, just be, where am I right now? This is my practice to stay right here, right now. And if I only can hold this for a half a second, fine. But I just noticed that it's only a half a second. Okay. This is all within this the realm of what is being perceived. And little by little, the interest will become more about this act of perceiving and the one who is perceiving that cannot be perceived. That will become more important than even the fact I need to bring attention back isn't just so I can control attention. It's because I want to be focused on that which is most important. And my mind's got all sorts of ideas as to what's important. It's quite diffused. It's quite distracted, right? Okay, that gets in the way. I need all of this capacity. So my attention is going to that which is absolutely essential to me. And so now even this process of meditation is serving this highest purpose. And in so doing, you're sitting now not to become the Buddha, but you're sitting as the Buddha. You are sitting as that perfect Tathagata. And you see that that's always been the case. And now all the rest of this is merely conforming itself to that which has always been true. Does that happen? It happened. Wait a minute. Does that answer your question there? G. I hope so. Very good. No practice is the best one, right? You know what the best practice is? Whatever one you're doing. Right? And the very fact that you're asking me these questions is that you want to deepen your practice. Right? Because something intuitively knows that there is an ultimate goal to this, even though that ultimate goal kind of fades into nothingness because you already are. The goal is to realize what's already here, which makes it kind of fun. So whatever practice you're doing is the best one, and this desire to continue to grow in that practice. Right? It's not that there's something wrong with your practice, but it's a practice, right? When I started learning how to play piano, there were very basic exercises you had to do in simple little songs. And then what happened? They got bigger and they got bigger and they got more complicated and the exercises got more difficult and they took more effort. And some of the things I picked up very quickly. Other things, man, I kept doing it and doing it and doing it until finally it gets under the fingers. And it's the way it works. Some things come easy, some things don't. And you know, sometimes I need a teacher to go, you know, you do it this way instead. Here, do this little exercise with your fingers. Oh, and after a while, oh, okay. So now suddenly the practice got enhanced a bit. It got some more nuance to it. So beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, says Buddha's Dojo. I practice the Zen good for nothing. Even the act of sitting is already the Buddha. Yes, yes. Yeah, the act of sitting is the Buddha. You can't be anything but that. Yeah. If just sitting is already the Buddha, then eating, walking, listening to is the Buddha. There is no Buddha other than this mind. This mind. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yes, that's absolutely correct. But that's what is come to be realized. It's covered up simply by this sense of being a person. And the person you see is empty. There's no inherent self in this form, right? There's nothing about it. You can take this body completely apart and you will not find a GP. You'll not find anybody there. This realization that this is all just an incredibly complex, interdependent dance of things is the realization of emptiness, of no self. And that realization is the Buddha. Which means it's always been the Buddha. You've always been aware of it, but there's been this thought that says there's a self here, there's a person here, there is someone here. Jennifer, isn't it that after you find this, it must be forgotten to remember? What a huge paradox it all becomes. Yes, until you see that there's something that's aware of even the forgetting and the remembering, which is neither forgotten nor remembered. As Muji put it beautifully, he said, I am. Before the idea that I could forget or the idea that I needed to remember was believed. And it's just a belief. The belief I could forget, the belief I could remember. Isn't there something that's aware of both the forgetting and the remembering? Oh, I forgot. Oh, I remembered. I forgot. I remembered. There's something else there that's far more subtle that just knows and always knows. It's what perceives everything. And these practices I'm talking about are simply bringing us to the point where we're seeing on a very subtle level all of the little activities of mind and behavior and seeing that they're all empty. They're just happening, and that there's something absolutely unmovable that you can't call it a self, you can't call it not a self. It's everything. It's just this pure presence. You can't really even use a word for it, but it's obviously here. It's obviously the ultimate perceiver, which is you. Let's see. Does that answer it for you? And so it seems like a paradox, but you can see that even the paradox, right, this motion, and then it's just pure joy at the mystery and the wonder of it. And how in, wow, what? How in the world? and that's the realization of your Buddha nature. Okay? And that becomes something that's right now. It's not a future event. It's not something off there somewhere. Right? Oh, I'm going to be a Buddha. Oh no, this is what's happening right now. And my experience right now is the Buddha experience. And every little thing that's going on is that. That there's no special conditions, there's no special life, there's no special form, there's no special anything. That your life, just as it is right now, is the Buddha. Period. Thank you, Jennifer. There's that unpronounced T4LSA. Well, but I can't pronounce it. Yes, sir. Thank you. Happy to be here. Glad you're here. True self is no self. Yes. Yeah, and it transcends both the words. The self. Buddha was very clear about using no self. But of course, there was a misinterpretation of that too. They thought it was some kind of existential nihilism. like there was no existence whatsoever, which is not at all what he's saying. He's just saying that there isn't a self. There's nothing you can define and say it's a self. This, it's emptiness. Right? And in the Hindu and other traditions, they would talk of it as the self, right? Which again is really the same thing. It's that which actually is, but has no boundaries. You can't really call it a self. You can't say it's not a self, because even self and no self are opposites, right? They require each other in order to be spoken of. You can't speak of no self without a self, or self without the absence of self. And so now you see, oh, it's even deeper and more subtle than that. It is beyond all opposites. You can't even call it an it. It's just you. It's what's perceiving at all times. So the idea of no self is just to really recognize that everything you experience is a very complex combination of elements. Right? And any individual human life is made up of, there's the physical components, which is 100 trillion cells dancing together, constantly turning themselves over, the thoughts, the emotions, and the like. But they all came, they didn't operate in a vacuum. This body is the result of bodies from before that, going back God knows how long. The environment I was in, the education I got, the culture that it appeared in, all of these things, right? So could I say, well, what's me, right? What's me in all of this? And this is what he was pointing at. There's no self. Look at any object, right? Take a bicycle, right? A relatively simple mechanism, but what's the bicycle? The bicycle is, it's gears and a derailleur and spokes and wheels and handlebars and brakes, right? But so there's this combination of things, but take those apart and where's the bicycle? It has no inherent existence. It's a temporary combination of a bunch of elements. And look at each one of those elements. What are the handlebars? Well, there's the aluminum that it's made out of. There's the shaping, and then there's the design. And where did the aluminum come from? Well, and that comes from it's made because it's got these metals and it goes through this process. Oh, and there are these people there, and they know how to make this process. And somebody invented that process. All of a sudden, you see that there's this incredibly complex, a stupendously enormous single functioning going on, and all of this together makes this moment of human life. So you can see that the moment itself is empty of inherent existence. It has no self, and yet it is this wholeness. But even the wholeness, it's not a panpsychism. It's not, there's this consciousness made out of the totality of things. It is both that which is perceiving it and not that which is perceiving it at the same time. So the perceiving itself is not made up of any parts. So you could call that the self. But the moment you do that, you might think of it as an entity, as somebody, as a God, right? As something that has a particular character. It's not. It's pure emptiness. So you can also say it's no self. Well, what is it? It's you. That's it. That's all I can say. It's you. Self, no self. Glad there's no person here. Amen to that. Great. Coffee time. Hello, Bill. Good to see you. Gee, I work in a law firm, and most recently there's someone that sits in the admin team whose bad language and apparent obnoxiousness, as the volume in which they speak, triggers me. I know this sounds silly. Essentially, it is, but I'm working on letting this go and letting background noise simply be background noise without attaching any labels to it or to the person that it comes from. Well, try it like this, G. Another G. I like that. Try. It's okay, right? That they're being obnoxious. They are. Okay, they're loud. Yeah, they're an overzealous use of profanity rather than a judicious use for effect, which I myself will do. Um, Instead, try to just look upon them and see them not as a someone who is obnoxious, but as empties, this combination of elements where they came from, the education they've had, the experience they've had, the pain, the traumas, all of that stuff makes this functioning sitting in front of you. Not really a person, but this functioning that's there, that at the center of it is the same conscious awareness that is you, that is looking at them. That right there, you're identical. And now look upon this entire thing through the eyes of loving awareness. You're aware of all of this, right? And let that awareness not just be kind of clinical or cold or just pure awareness, but it's an awareness that has no axe to grind. It takes no position. It's a totally allowing of what is there. And you could call that love. Not the kind of love that, oh, I really like this, I love doing this, as opposed to not doing that. That's also part of love. But this is a love that is pure awareness. So it's this loving awareness, so that it isn't just a matter of how do I screen this out, but how do I see what's actually here? How do I turn this into an opportunity to be the Buddha? Right? What would Jesus do? Right? And just be, so you see that there's all of this stuff going on, just like there is in your life. And all the habit energy and the stuff about you that you're not particularly happy with, that you really want to transcend, right? That the particular form it took for you is completely about the causes and conditions that existed as you were growing up and the various experiences. And had things had been a little bit differently, you may be the one sitting in admin rather than the lawyer, using profanity and whatever else, and being loud and obnoxious. It could have been you. It's all a matter of causes and conditions. So now all of a sudden you're going, oh, look, we really are one in this. We are all bozos on this bus. We are all cut of the same cloth. And so recognizing that all of that is just there, and at the essence is the same conscious awareness that is right here looking at them. So when I get right down to the root, they're me. I am them, they're me. And now see what happens to all of that. Just watch the effect that has when there's no longer a me against them and me just trying to screen them out, but instead going, I'm just going to welcome and love them. I want to see the emptiness. I want to see what's actually here in the most loving and open way that I possibly can, filled with loving kindness, and then see what happens. Watch what happens. You'll even notice your own trigger is nothing but these causes and conditions. There's no reason why you should be triggered by that, right? Except your particular programming, right, has a reaction to that. And so now you bring that same loving awareness to that. Oh, this is also just part of the emptiness. There's nobody here that's triggered. There's just these causes and conditions that have happened and reactive patterns, and it's all part of this same thing. So you can look at your own triggeredness through those same eyes of love. Just watch what happens. Thank you, G. I hope that helps. Brent, loved seeing you in church last week, G. For those of you who don't know, last Sunday I spoke at a Unity church here in Washington, which I was happy to do. First live in front of people event I've done since COVID started, 3 years ago. So we should get you to speak at my parents' church in rural Michigan. Is it a Unity church or a Unitarian church or Centers of Spiritual Living, or one of those? I'll go anywhere, as long as expenses are covered and I get a little bit extra to bring back with me. I'll go absolutely anywhere. So Jennifer, thank you. Oh, you're very welcome. Hello, Dale. Good to see you, Dale. Oscar, getting late here in Turkey. Love you guys. Catch you later. Good night, Oscar. Hey, there's Jessica. Hello, Jessica. See you later, Oscar. Buddhist Jojo, have a peaceful night. Look at all the love coming out here. Carson N. Hello, Carson. I think you're new too. Hey, GP, I love you. I love you too. A self-taught programmer, and really appreciate you saying that the Buddha mind can write code. It sure can. You know, it made my career for many years. And it wrote really good code too. I was like totally shocked. Also, with no technical education. It's a silly question, but what techniques could one employ to remain meditative in thinking heavy tasks? I get awful fidgety. Well, as you notice the fidgetiness, right? And look, when our minds are really engaged, right, it's hard to stay present in this moment. But of course, as I said before, one of the most common, the one characteristic of genius that is consistent across every example of it is this capacity to focus attention on one thing. Right? Now, notice that there's something aware of the attention. So you're in this heavy thinking, but you're fidgety, right? Okay, well, what's the fit? Now you say, just kind of go. You may need to say, okay, I've got to keep focused here because this is the only way I'm going to solve the problem. And if you're programming, they're enormously complex problems. Right? The systems I designed were really complex, and it took every ounce of focus I could muster to be able to stay in the midst of that complexity long enough for a comprehensive and elegant solution to appear. So you can either say, okay, there's a fidgetiness here. Fine, I'm going to let it be here. Right? That first step, because I need to keep all of my attention here. Right? Now, if it doesn't require total focus in this particular thing, you can just, as you're continuing to do what you're doing, breathe to bring your attention into the body. Because right? What is the fidgetiness except you're going off into the future or you're going into the past? Right? There won't be any fidgetiness if you're totally focused in this moment. There'll just be the normal functioning of the body going on. So just go, okay, there's a fidgetiness here. That's fine. You can be here. No problem. So if you don't make a problem of it, then there's nothing to do with it. It's just something that's present, and nothing gets distracted from what you're doing, you see? If the fidgetiness is, the fidgetiness is a problem, boom, all of a sudden you've lost focus. Part of you is going, this is a problem I have to solve. It becomes intrusive. Notice it's the thought that becomes intrusive and not the fidgetiness. And then you just kind of go into your body. When you can. If you can do it right then, great. If you can't, don't. And then just kind of, fidgetiness. Well, what does this fidgetiness actually feel like? You'll notice that when you get a sensation, your mind immediately labels it. This is fidgetiness. This is stress. This is anxiety, right? Now, that's the mind. And the mind's very narrow, right? It loves to categorize things, right? This feeling, it's this. But if you actually stop and be with the feeling that you call fidgety, set aside the word fidgety, you'll find that it is not that excuse me, it's not that confined. It's like, what is it? Well, yeah, I call it fidgety. There's a certain anxiousness to it. There's kind of my mind's kind of wandering around a bit. There's a little tension in the body. You see, that's much more nuanced than just that word. So you set the word aside and go directly to the sensation itself. And you keep breathing into it, right? Okay, there's this feeling that's here. I'm going to let it be here. I'm going to give it loving awareness. You have complete permission to be here. You're obviously here for a reason. And I'm not going to let my mind tell me it's a problem. It's not a problem. Obviously, it's not a problem. Right? The body doesn't make stuff up. right? If it's fidgety, it's some kind of a sense of anxiety or something. There's something the body is responding to. You say, okay, good. So just show me what's going on. I'm totally present here. Now there's this great open spaciousness that takes place. It's a beautiful setting of loving awareness that whatever it is that's going on has permission to come up. And oftentimes, just the fact of allowing it and not resisting it is all it takes for it to go, okay, good. And it just dissipates. Other times it may reveal a story to you. It may say, okay, this is what's happening. This is going on. We need to deal with this. But you have to, it's a practice because we have to get really good at discerning between what is actually being told to me by the direct experience and what is my mind's interpretation of this. I might say, oh, it's a problem. I've got to get rid of this problem. Oh, this is being caused by the fact that I've got a deadline next week, or my car broke and I got to get it fixed. But that's all the mind looking for a reason for it. Right? Because okay, I got a reason for it. Now it's fine. If you set all of that aside and let the attention remain with the sensations of the emotions, just staying in the body, you'll find that the real reason it's there will eventually get revealed. And if it doesn't need to reveal it, it'll just go. It'll just dissipate. It'll be done. This is inner reconciliation. You're reconciling with these inner energies. You're not trying to control them. You're not labeling, oh, this is a problem. Oh God, this isn't good. I've got to change this. That's all in the mind. Set all of that aside and just be totally present with whatever comes up, noticing that when the mind comes up, it's mind. When your emotions come up, it's emotion. When sensations come up, they're sensations, and you don't need to intermix them. You don't need to label a sensation or an emotion. Right? They require no explanation. And you'll also notice that there's a very important distinction. The sensations and the emotions are direct and immediate. Boom, there's just the feeling. They were there first, and then the thought about them, the interpretation, the labeling, the sense of it being a problem or something that has to be fixed, all comes later. The sensation and emotion are right here, right now. They're direct experience. They're the actual experience of life. And now you're sitting under the Bodhi tree, experiencing things as they are. When you're doing that, even if it's for a split second, the Buddha is present. So, Carson, it's not a silly question. Not in the slightest. And as you can see, it taps into something that's actually quite deep, isn't it? Doesn't it? It's like, wow, got all this stuff going on. And my mind's got all these explanations and chatter about it, and none of it's true. None of it's factual. I see. Lovely. Thank you, Carson. Waheguru. Thank you so much, fellow G. M. There's an M in there too. You're GM, I'm GP. Waheguru. Thank you, G. Carson says, you're awesome. I really, really, really appreciate your answer. I've been getting better at it. I want some more perspective on the matter. Beautiful. Perfect. Yeah. Facebook user. My master, so happy to catch you live right now. I love you. I love you too. I don't know. It just says Facebook user, so it sounds like faith. It sounds like faith. It's got the faith vibe about it. Maybe it's not though. Buddhist Jojo, can we say then that mindfulness is complete acceptance of what is without labeling, speculating, or manipulating? Yes. Oh, it's Jonas. Hey, Jonas. Yes. Sure. That's a great way. Of putting it. It is. It is an acceptance of this moment, right, that stays in the moment. Right? That's because mindfulness is simply you're feeling what you're feeling when you're feeling it. Right? Oh, there it is. There's this feeling. And then I can label that feeling. Sometimes it's useful to do that in the process of letting go of resistance to it. Sometimes we need to put the label aside so we stay with the feeling. Right? It's different at different times. Sometimes somebody will have a feeling, and I'll ask them what it is, just so I know as a facilitator with them. But also sometimes it helps bring clarity. Other times the label brings with it some additional overhead. Excuse me. Some additional overhead that is not needed, that gets you out of the direct experience and into the mind. This is a very subtle art that we're doing here. It's not something, which is why it's a practice. But it's a practice like that, it's a practice until you finally get it right at some point. It's a life practice, like practicing music. Right? People practice, even the best musicians practice. Ishak Perlman practices. I mean, he's one of the greatest violinists of all time. And he practices every day. He says he even practices while he's watching football or something, right? Just making his finger, right? It's practice. The practice is it's like an art form, right? So it isn't like, okay, now my practice is done, because life is constantly moving, constantly shifting, constantly playing. And the practice is simply to be in the Tao, be in the flow, be in the dance, right? So, so yes, it is an acceptance. Right? Acceptance is the loving awareness. That's the heart opening. Right? And when the heart is open and not closed, there can be a vulnerability. There can be a lot of things can come up when the heart opens, because it builds a wall. A wall gets built around the heart. The heart never really closes. It just gets a wall around it, so to protect it, because it got hurt in the past. And so as that wall comes down, things begin to soften. More and more is exposed. Up comes the vulnerability. So then if there's this, this is what is here. And there's no conceptualizing of it. There's no resistance to it, or at least there's awareness of the resistance, but it's not like you're actively participating in it. It's more of just kind of the reactive patterns going on. And now you're accepting of that. The heart is open to that. There's no need for a label, but you'll notice that the mind wants to label, and there's an openness and acceptance of that. Okay, that's what minds do, right? So fine, right? And I'm going to stay here. Yeah, that's the place of real mindfulness, of loving awareness, seeing things as they are. The first noble truth, right views. Seeing things as they actually are, without any judgment. A thought, you're seeing a thought, not as my truth, not as my life, not as an explanation of everything, but it's thought. I'm seeing emotion, and it's just emotion. I'm seeing sensation, it's just sensation. Memory is just memory. Aspiration, anticipation is just as anticipation. Right? So, and now at this point, I'm not mixing anything up, right? I'm purely aware. And it's this loving space. And that is mindfulness. Right? I am very present, right? Even of the mind. Some energies don't dissolve immediately. Nope, they don't. That's why that's why we get better at this. Because in the beginning, we think the goal is that these energies dissolve. And it's beautiful when they do, obviously, right? And it's it's part of the thing. We want that to happen. But the real practice is the sense of equanimity that it doesn't matter whether they dissolve or not. And if you want the test to see if you really are in the pure state of allowing, you say, could I be with this feeling for the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, then you realize there's still some resistance to it. You go, wonderful. I'm still holding on to some resistance to it. I haven't opened my heart fully to this whatever it is, this unpleasant or uncomfortable or difficult sensation. I'm still harboring this desire to get rid of it. I've still invented an enemy. Right? Oh, these are all me. Okay, welcome. Yeah. Oh, very uncomfortable. I have to tell you, I'm very uncomfortable, but I'm okay with that too. You have full permission to be here. That's loving awareness. It's 100% yes. And if it isn't 100% yes, you notice that and go, you forgive yourself. There's no judgment. Well, yeah, of course, there's still some resistance to it. And looking closer at that, taking that into love awareness, you see that resistance isn't you. It's just part of the way the system has been programmed, the various causes and conditions, the thought that if I resisted it, it would go away because I don't like it. Okay, well, I see that as well. Oh, you can be here too. Come on to the party. You see, it's just this complete open-heartedness. That's why I'm referring to it more and more often these days as loving awareness. That it's not just this pure consciousness, pure awareness, which it is, right? But when you see that that awareness is absolutely open to anything, it says no to nothing. It is completely open. You see, it's also the open heart. It's not just the open mind. It's not just enlightenment of the mind. This is the heart. I'm open to it all, even to the suffering of humanity. Oh, okay, yes, be here too. Yes, you can be here too. I'm more than willing to take this in. In fact, this awareness is so big, it can take on the suffering of the whole universe. It could take on the sins of the world, as it was said about Christ, because there was no restrictions in his heart. That's how he could do it. You don't have to do that quite yet, but this is what we're cultivating. And all you need to do is deal with what's this moment. Don't anticipate I'm going to be a Buddha or a Christ in the future. If I can say yes to this moment, that's it. I'm the Buddha. And then when the no comes up and I notice the no, I'm still the Buddha. Nothing's changed. Right? Because we think, oh, if I'm the Buddha, then these things aren't going to come up. No, they are going to come up. When Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, all sorts of things came up. It was defined, it was symbolized as Mara. First, the temptations of his daughter, then fear and threat, then duty and obligation, and questioning his authority. And even when Mara left after all those temptations of Siddhartha, who now was the Buddha, the awakened one, it wasn't the first time. It wasn't the last time. He kept coming back. He kept coming back, kept coming back. And every time he'd come back, Buddha would say, hey, Mara, good to see you. Let's have tea. And he'd sit down with Mara. So there was no end to it. The same thing with Christ. He had his temptations, but Christ, devil, I'll be back. And he was numerous times, numerous threats. That's why Christ would go off by himself into the mountain. And the mountain symbolized this place, complete withdrawal from the world, back into this place of his own pure loving awareness to go back out into the world again. So it wasn't a one and done, even after the full enlightenment of the Buddha. It wasn't done. So this is a theme that plays out in your life right now. It isn't a destination in the future. It's right now. My desire, even the desire to say yes to this moment just as it is, even if I can't do it, is the Buddha. Because the ego doesn't say that. The ego says, I'm totally open to this moment. The ego is going, no, get away. I don't like you. I want it to be perfect. I want to be blissful. But the desire to be present, even when everything is, you can't do it for a split second. It's still the Buddha. You're there. You are in this moment. You are in the Dharma. You are, and you are the Sangha, the practitioner with all other practitioners, inviting all beings. Ah, beautiful, 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 beautiful. Oops. Let's see what came up here. Oh, hey, G, the name I can't pronounce. How can we deal with people who have a spiritual ego and use spiritual ideas to fight their inner security by putting themselves above others? Well, it's kind of the recommendation I gave to G, working in the office with the loud and obnoxious person. Really, there are two people in the world that I put up there as most annoying, right? Number one is spiritual people, right? The overtly spiritual people. They talk the spiritual language. They have spiritual hair and spiritual clothes, and they're always off to the next spiritual event, and they're either modeling, trying to be all super nice, or they carry this spiritual sense of ego. The other's vegans. There's the joke. How do you tell if somebody's a vegan? You don't need to. They'll tell you. It's just kind of the case. But you'll notice then that what is that? It's they've been touched by something important. Both the vegan and the spiritual person have been touched by something that is actually important. It's significant. They saw the value. Right? The spiritual person saw the value in the spirituality. There's an awakening that's taken place. But it hasn't deepened enough yet. And so the sense of self took on this particular characteristics and became appropriated the spiritual idea and spiritual thoughts and made a behavior out of it and constructed a new sense of identity. Now, it's a better sense of identity. They're probably more loving and more giving and that sort of thing. But they're probably more arrogant, more full of themselves. And if you look really closely, you'll find that underneath is this. They haven't been able yet to get in touch with the part of themselves that doesn't like themselves, that feels small, that's desperate to have a sense of self that validates them. There's usually some kind of emotional crippling that has happened underneath. Right? And again, if you look upon them as being a product of their particular causes and conditions, their heritage, their culture, their upbringing, their ancestry, the place where they were born, what part of the world or part of the country, what religions that were around them, what was their world like. You'll see all of that together made this being that's standing in front of you now, speaking from this place. And you can see the emptiness of it. And again, you keep honing in on that until you find that underneath all of that is the spark of self-awareness that is the same spark that's in you, that's viewing them. And then you also put your attention, that same loving attention, on that in you, which is being triggered by that, which is looking at that and going, how do I deal with these people? What does that mean? My reaction is, I'm trying to find the loving way to deal with them, but in fact, they're really annoying. They're really annoying people. You fight their insecurity by putting themselves above others. Yes. And so loving awareness, if you're aware of their insecurity, right, be more aware of that than what they've used to compensate for it. And suddenly you can open your hearts to them. Because we can all relate to the insecurity, can't we? We've all felt it. Right? This is a common experience. And then look at how did I deal with the insecurity? Well, at first, not very well. I tried to cover it up. I tried to mask it. I tried to do all sorts of things. But maybe I've gotten to the point of my spiritual growth where I'm willing to be present with the insecurity. Good. So now can I be present with theirs? Right? You continued. The person in question respects the ideas and opinions of my partner and I. We invited them to our Unity Church, and it became slightly embarrassing. Oh, well, I'm sorry about that. Because yes, you know, you invited them to the church because when they were just with you, this person was just with you and your partner. It wasn't so bad, right? There was like, oh, there's a little bit of affinity. You were aware more, right? But all of a sudden, this person got into a situation with all these other people around them, and their defenses came up. Remember, the arrogance, condescension, all of that is a defense mechanism. It's a way of distancing, right? I do that by, okay, I'm better, right? Which is just mind stuff. But what's really at stake? What's really happening there? They're trying to create a distance so that they're protected. They're not seen. They're not exposed because there's a fear of being exposed, especially if it's around people who are also practicing um, spirituality. You know, the new thought is a very wonderful form of spirituality, right? And is very loving, is very embracing. You know, it doesn't see the vengeful God. It sees a very loving God. God is the one mind, the one love, the heart of all. Right? And so it could be that this person really does not want to be engaged with their peers, or even feels that these guys are know more than they do. And so there's a sense of being threatened. Right? And yeah, for on your account, it's like I know that feeling, right? You know, and I don't see it as a problem. It's like, you know, oh my God, okay, they're a little embarrassing. Um, I get that sometimes in classes with some people who do stuff or take a position, right? And it's like, and it's kind of like a little embarrassing, and so it becomes the art form of, okay, how do I lovingly touch them? Right? And I don't always know how to do it. And occasionally it has to be a really, some are very adamant. Some it has to be just a direct say, you know what, that's not really true what you're saying. And then it'll be a matter of, well, they're either going to accept that because they deeply do want to get to the higher ground, or the ego will double down. They'll reject, and I won't see them again. Now, the good news is I don't have to do that often. Most of the time, people just respond to love. We can work it. We can find a way to make it happen. But that's an art form, and I've been doing this for a very long time. So I've a lot of different ways of getting in before I have to finally say, okay, put up or shut up. Fortunately. So and it's okay. Just be with your own embarrassment. Yeah, it's like, oh dear. Yep. Whoops, sorry. My bad. That's human. It's okay. Yeah, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna do things that are going to feel embarrassing. It's okay. Right? Forgive yourself for that. Right? And you'll learn from it. Right? You won't invite that person again. Right? Or you just, let them come on their own. If they come on their own, fine. They're gonna find their own way. And it'd be a good place for them to come. Maybe getting around others can kind of begin to, you don't know what their experience has been that has made them feel like they have to be in this place, right? And if you just recognize it's just the protective mechanism, there's no self there. There's no arrogant person there. There's only this arrogant behavior or condescending behavior, or whatever form it took, which is part of the mechanism of protection. And there's not anybody actually doing it. And at the root is the same conscious awareness that is in you looking at them. And so you give yourself permission to find an even more loving place than you've ever found before. Towards yourself for being embarrassed, it's like, oh boy, that was stupid. And look, nobody's exempt from that. I've done it even recently. It's like, oh, that was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. That's embracing your humanness. That's part of this whole loving awareness thing that we're all doing. So does that help? Does that answer the question there? Oh my. Yeah. Loving awareness, loving awareness. Ah, gee, today's satsang, so important for me. I will have to listen again. Mindfulness not only when meditating, but to practice it as often as I can during daily life. I used to practice meditation, but then in daily living, there was only daily living, and also as many distractions into future, past, or whatever. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's a practice to bring it into true non-duality, which is, you know, the the sitting is a sitting zazen, doing zazen, or just sitting meditation, is a metaphor for life. You bring the cushion with you. you don't you don't you don't stay there. You bring the cushion with you. It comes out into life. It is a practice for life. So there's a full embrace. The more you can embrace of your own feelings, the more you embrace of the world. It's just the way it is. And you see the horrific things in the world. And there's a sense of empowerment that the things that you can do something about, you really can do something about. But there's also this wide-eyed seeing of just, look at this behind me, right? You guys can't see it all that clearly, but I just sit here and go, my God, where does it come from? The mystery of it, the beauty of it, it's overwhelming. You get that too. And with it, the intensity of the suffering. Oh my God. What? But now there's this open-heartedness that just explodes, right? That can hold it all. A person can't hold it, right? But loving awareness can. Thank you so much. And when it's necessary, even though, yeah, sometimes, I have a lot of stuff to do during the weekend, during the day, especially this last couple of weeks. Moving, play all sorts of things. Doing a class. I got a retreat coming up that I'll be leading, an online retreat through the Krishnamurti Center, and all of these things going on, right? And all of a sudden, I just just breathe. And I got a little ritual I do for a little chant, right? Little different kinds of breathing that help me keep my attention here. And I actually use Insight Timer, right, to help me, because sometimes, there's just so much going on. It takes a minute to come back to right, here we are. Right. So don't think there's this sudden mastery that takes place, right? The Buddhas are rare, okay? They're rare. Even Buddha got angry, got sick, he had a cold, got food poisoning. So it's like, there's no accomplishment. Zazen is good for nothing. There's no accomplishment. There's no attainment. Just this moment. That's it. Am I present now with the fact that my mind is all over the place? All right, my mind's all over the place. That's the Buddha. Knowing it's impermanent, it'll come and go. If it's here for a while, fine. Okay, fine. Just breathe. It's so simple. It's so simple. Oh, thank you so much, says Buddha's Dojo. You're very welcome. Jennifer, shooing my kids when it's not all roses and sunshine, say in tantrum mode, I have them smile, showing them the way to noticing an unpleasant experience is valid. They're in control. The smile shifts their mood. Yeah. Oh yeah. If you don't criticize them, right? If you don't, you just remember my kids would throw a tantrum and I'd just sit there. And I'd watch. No reaction. I just loved them so much. It was so easy, right? And eventually, are you done? Yeah. And then we're buds again. We do stuff. I remember when my granddaughter would throw a tantrum, and then sometimes you just get, really really sad. Or one time I took her to art class. She just didn't want to go. Right? She just wanted to be with Dad, but Dad really needed me to take her to her art class because he had a whole bunch of stuff that he had to do. And so she cried most of the way there, but we had a way of working it out. I let her. It's okay. She could feel that way. But by the time our class was over, she was great. She was wonderful. She had just come back to herself. So it's really all a matter of just you don't judge it. I mean, it's human. This is what we do. I mean, damn, there's been times recently I've really wanted to throw a tantrum, but there's nobody listening. I live alone. Can't I have a tantrum? And there's somebody. We have adult tantrums too. We just mask them. With a kid, there's no masking. It's full body full body participation. Throw themselves on the floor, kick and scream. We adults just do it much more subtly. We're much more sophisticated. No, we're much more full of shit, is what it is. And yeah, just say, okay, can you make a little half smile? It's true that if we smile, even if the rest of us, they're willing to just do this, even if they're angry, it has an effect. It does. It's a mudra. Right? You can think of it as a mudra, and the body does respond to it. It's very true. Ah, beautiful. Bring your couch with you. Yep. Bring your meditation couch or chair or cushion or whatever you're using. Bring it with you. So thank you. Yes, that was lovely. Thank you. Thank you all. Wonderful. Don't see any more questions popping in, so maybe we'll bring it to a close for today. Seems like mindfulness is a really valuable subject for you all. So I think I'm going to do between now and the Krishnamurti event that I'll be sending out an email about very shortly. I do this once a year. I do an online. Next year, 2024, it's going to be live in person in the beautiful grounds up there in Canada. It's the Krishnamurti Education Center of Canada. But in the intervening years, I've been doing it annually, and it's kind of my gift to them. It's partly donation. It's not expensive. It's a 3-day retreat. I will be doing 3 satsang sessions, 90 minutes to 2 hours each on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 24th, 25th, and 26th. It's only $100 Canadian for the entire thing. So it's more of my donation to them. I get part of the funds, but it's a nonprofit private group that keeps alive teachings like this, teachings of J. Krishnamurti, one of the biggest spiritual figures of the 20th century for sure. So I'll be doing that, but I think what I'm going to do in the interim is a low-cost thing, maybe 25, 30, 40 bucks tops, where I'm just going to take some passages from Balyani's "He who knows their self knows their Lord." Balyani, just the most marvelous piece of writing. So I'll be letting everybody know about that this week, because I'm probably going to do it like sometime the week before the retreat. The retreat is totally on Zoom. It won't be live. 2024, it'll be live in person and on Zoom. I think we're going to try to do it both. So yes, it's going to be on Zoom. I will send out a link. It won't be registered on my site. You'll be registering on the Krishnamurti site. I will get a copy of the replay, and I'll get it available on my site as well, but it'll be available on theirs. So yes, it will be. The reason I'm doing another one, first low cost, but the reason I'm also doing another one is because this retreat, well, it's called the power of loving awareness, but it really is focused on the non-dual aspect. Well, it's going to be like this. It's going to be this, but I do like to try to focus on just the non-duality, but the practicality of the non-duality, which is loving awareness, so that you'll be able to 3 days of really kind of being present with it, being present with yourself, and doing the deep kind of self-inquiry that is completely intertwined with the allowing pure mindfulness meditation, but is not quite the same. It's another element to it, because you're noticing and simply asking the question, well, who is aware of this? Who's being mindful? Who am I? Which takes it to another level. So yes, it'll be on Zoom. Let's see. So two more. Okay, I think I got everybody. So thank you all. We'll be receiving an email this week about it, as well as the Om School Live this week, because of my move, and Lisa is going to be moving as well. We're going to be doing a repeat this week. And then so we'll be back with a fresh show the week after that. But I'll pick a good issue, a good show to share with you guys. Oh, Neruda, how to do this practice when around family who are trauma bonded, difficult to communicate mindfully due to triggering. So don't. Just meet them where they are. You become mindful of the fact that they can't be, that they're trauma bonded. They're attached. It's not that they are bonded to their trauma. It's just there's so little consciousness there. The trauma is who they are. So when you're talking to them, you're not talking to somebody who's traumatized. You're talking to the trauma itself, right? Now, if you keep that focus, you go, oh, but yet at the root of that, there is a conscious awareness that is the same conscious awareness that is you looking at them. And so it becomes an opportunity to open your heart. Open your heart, open your heart, open your heart, soften your heart to them. And if you can't communicate with them mindfully, just communicate on whatever level you can. That's what it means to be mindful. Don't make mindful into this, I'm in this state and I'm communicating pure truth all the time. No, it just means, okay, in this situation, this is all I can do. That's mindful. That's perceiving as things as they actually are. And then being so present with them that your behavior conforms to it. And you're aware that that's happening. So you're not just responding because of your traumas, you're responding consciously from this place of loving awareness, and you're fully present. And now you are being mindful, even if under the circumstances, there's nothing you can do. Yeah. And it's one of the hardest things to do, but okay, well, there's nothing I can do then. Then that's where I am now, and that's mindful. So I got one last question in there. Wonderful. Thank you. Peace and prosperity to everyone. Love this tea with G. Thank you, everyone. You're all so welcome. I love you all dearly. All right. Thank you. Namaste, everybody.